All right, welcome everyone to our 500th office hours. That's a lot of office hours that we've done, and this is our 500th. So welcome, everyone. Get settled in, get ready for the journey. I will ask that if you are currently unmuted, please mute yourself just so we don't have any like kind of ambient noise distracting us during this process. But like y'all to get ready for our 500th office hours because today we got a very special office hours for you as part of our 500th. A lot of fun things to do. Now, a couple of housekeeping items before we get started for today's office hour special. Make sure to, as part of the raffle that we have going on for today, make sure to fill out the Google form doc that's been shared with you. I believe that's in our chat right now. So if you fill that out, that's going to make you eligible for the raffles that we're going to have going on today. So Will Netling, my colleague, just posted that in the chat section. You can see the link there. Go ahead and fill that out. Now we will be starting our raffles at 15 minutes after our first, or 15 minutes after the hour. And we'll be doing it every 10 minutes after that. So if you want to be eligible for every raffle we'll be having in this office hour special, make sure to fill out that form by 15 after the hour. And of course, we'll be raffling off free tutoring sessions, free 1 hour tutoring sessions with me, Ross. I'm the content editor or the content director at LSATMax. So as part of this, just make sure to fill out that form. We'll get that permission thing sorted out so you can all fill that out. Okay, so what are we going to do today as part of our 500th office hour special? Well, we're going to be first talking to LSATMax's newest instructor, Abby Goldman. Abby has a very interesting story about using office hours to really do well in the LSAT. And so we want to kind of thought, okay, for our 500th office hours, let's talk to someone who used office hours to her own benefit and got a great LSAT score, partially because of our office hours. And so we'll be hearing from Abby, learning a little bit about her own LSAT journey, how she utilized office hours, and we'll be hearing from some tips that she can provide to all of you about how you can best use office hours to get the scores that you want. Like I mentioned, every 10 minutes we'll be offering raffles. So we'll be doing that in between some of my conversations with Abby. And so we'll be posting who earned those free tutoring sessions every 10 minutes. Also have some fun stuff to preview for you guys, some changes to LSATMax that we thought we would use this 500th office hours to preview. And then at the end, with any time we have left over, we'll just open up for a Q&A. So any questions that you have about the LSAT, about law school admissions, about LSATMax, about office hours, anything you have, we'll open up the floor to those, and Abby and I will hang out to answer those questions. So looks like the Google form has been updated, so you should all be able to fill that out right now. So let's get to it. Let's start talking about Abby Goldman's journey. So let's welcome Abby, everybody. Give Abby a warm welcome here. Abby, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Ross. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Excited for this 500th office hour. So welcome to the team, by the way. You've been with us as an intern for a little bit of time, but you just signed up to start doing some of these office hours yourself, working with some tutors one-on-one. So we're all very excited to have you as that. And we're very excited to have you here to talk about your journey
Thanks.
for using the office hours and getting that great LSAT score that you got. So before we get into that, why don't you provide everyone here with a little bit about your background? What kind of led you to this point of working with LSATMax?
Yeah, sure. So, hey, everybody. My name's Abby, as we've already established. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I currently live in France, and I've lived there since March 2020. I went to Miami University in Ohio, and I studied international studies and French lit. And then I went to the UK for my master's, and I'm applying to law school this application cycle. So I hope to start in 2022. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, between
Okay,
all of that international traveling, when did you start studying for the LSAT?
I started studying actually right around when COVID became kind of blew up in March 2020. But I would say I probably started studying way more seriously in August or September 2020. Just because in March I was finishing my degree at the time and also working. So it's been a long process. It was
Yeah.
about 15 months overall.
Yeah, it's been a long year for us all, or a long, almost
Yeah.
over a year now.
Yeah, sure.
But glad you were able to use it to productive end. So you started in March, but really started in earnest later that year in
Yes.
September. Um, I always hear from many of my students, they're very intimidated by the LSAT when they first start studying for it. When you first kind of started studying either in March, once you really started to pick it up in September, did you have any fears or apprehensions about the test that made studying a very daunting process?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think the biggest fear that I had when I was first starting was just that I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was being asked of me. None of my parents or really none of my friends at the time had ever gone to law school or had gone through that process. So I really had no idea what was even tested. So that was the biggest hurdle definitely in the beginning, just to understand what was being asked of me in on the exam. And then once I got more and more into the study process, I think the biggest hurdle for me was that I didn't realize how much weight the LSAT did carry. I mean, I had taken the GRE and other standardized tests before that, but it wasn't as it just it. I felt like when I was applying for my master's, the process was a lot more holistic, whereas in law school admissions, it's like numbers are huge. So that was definitely a hard thing for me to handle was the pressure of just knowing how much the exam means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, oh, you mentioned not really knowing what the exam tests do. That was my experience too. The first time I took the test,
Yeah, because
same
I was
thing. Didn't have any lawyers in my family. Didn't really talk to any of my like college friends who were pursuing the law about the LSAT. I don't
yeah.
know why, but I went into that first practice exam kind of assuming that I don't know, it was going to be a test about the law, right? Like it was
Yeah,
like
or I
the bar
thought, oh,
exam.
okay, how hard can logic be to learn? I mean, I'm sure they're gonna test about that, but boy, yeah, I had some
Yeah,
learning to do for sure.
for sure. And you mentioned the weight of that score really, really weighing on you. As
Yes.
you were studying, did you do anything to kind of alleviate that pressure that the score felt? Because that's another thing I hear a lot from students. Like, oh, this
Yeah.
just feels so important. It's so stressful. I have so much anxiety building up because of this all important score. Did you do anything or adopt any strategies to alleviate that pressure?
Yeah, and this is something I wish I would have started way earlier. I mean, for the first, I would say 6 months that I was studying, I didn't do anything. I was used to, because I had never had that level of test anxiety before. So I kind of just like pushed through it and said, okay, I'm gonna keep going and hopefully it'll go away eventually. But then I finally, when I realized that the test anxiety was not going away and that it was just getting worse, I started I started really imposing limits on myself as to how much time I was going to spend studying and thinking about the LSAT. And I know that's easier said than done, like, trust me, but I think it definitely just dedicating time to remembering who I was outside of this exam and studying for it was super, super refreshing and important, and actually made me even more productive when I did end up going back to studying, or not back to studying, but like the next day or something if I would force myself to stop. So that was really helpful. Just like I said, forcing limits on myself as to how much I was going to think about the LSAT and how much I was going to study. I tried meditation too, but to be honest, it didn't work for me. I think I was actually too anxious to even concentrate, but that has helped for a lot of people. I know a lot of people who just look up free meditation videos on YouTube and stuff, and that seems to help them quite a bit as well. So yeah, that was what I did really, was just kind of making a schedule of exactly how much time I was going to spend on it every day and just sticking to it and forcing myself to walk away and do something fun eventually. And that helped a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't really like white knuckle the anxiety, right? You can't just like get
Yeah,
like say like I'm not gonna feel this. You do have to find something to
yeah,
kind of alleviate that stress, whether it's meditation, using apps like Calm or
yeah,
Headspace or something like that, or just doing things that you like to do personally, like exercising or socializing or watching Netflix or whatever it might be. You do really have to make time and space for all of that.
You
yeah.
definitely have to like decompress because like I feel like I'm getting burnt out. Like I'm doing 30 plus hours like a week and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah. I mean, and I would definitely say, like, I know that it's hard to walk away from it because you're like, oh, I didn't maybe get enough done, or I didn't make the progress that I wanted to make this week. But honestly, the more you force yourself and sit there, it's just diminishing returns after a certain point. You might as well walk away from it, come back with fresh eyes. And I find that you make more progress and you're more productive when you do force yourself to walk away. So yeah, definitely empathize and you will get through it. Trust me.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's good to remind ourselves that studying for the LSAT is a marathon and not a sprint. I know
Yeah.
that's a cliche, it's trite, but some
But it's,
quite trite and cliche things are true. And that's
yeah.
definitely one. You're not gonna, make all your progress in one day. Sometimes it does make the most sense. Like, you know what? Realize I'm making diminishing returns right now. Let me go take care of myself and return back to this with refreshed eyes tomorrow. I will note that we are asking that you mute your microphones just so we don't hear any ambient noise or anything like that. But if you do have any questions for Abby or myself or William Netling, please put it in the chat and we'll get to that question either on mic or in the chat section itself. So we'd love to hear from y'all in the chat section. Thank you. Okay, so Abby, eventually in your study process, you became an LSAT-Max intern. You're doing a variety of projects for us, but one of the projects that we had you working on was to start watching like a lot of our past office hours,
Yeah.
recording of the office hours, which are
Yeah.
available to all of our students. But we asked you to take a careful look at them. You took the June 2021 LSAT, correct?
I did. Yes. I actually took April and June, but June was when I finally finished. Yeah.
Okay, so June was the score. So before that June LSAT, approximately how many office hour sessions would you say you viewed?
I would say I went back and looked and it was about 50. So it was a lot.
50
Um,
office hour sessions. Yeah, a lot. And you've looked at a number of them since then.
and
So
yeah,
yeah, everyone is really looking at the queen of LSAT Max's office hours right now, with the number of ones she's consumed. So
yeah,
after watching all of those office hours,
yeah.
what score did you end up getting on the June 2021 test?
I ended up with a 178. So I was
Wow.
yeah, I was pretty
That's
happy.
all. So give
wow.
Abby a little
178. Wow.
congratulations.
That is
Yeah,
Thank you.
very, very good. Now, obviously, it wasn't just watching those office hours that helped you earn that amazing score on the June test. You're doing a number of other things, but how would you say the office hours? In what ways would you say the office hours helped you prepare for the LSAT?
One big way was just kind of changing my mentality about the test. Um, I had read, pretty much every book out there about the content of the exam, but the office hours, just kind of the little things that instructors would mention, really helped me in changing the way that I was thinking about taking the exam in general. Like an example would be, I remember watching Kaylin's reading comp office hour sections, and she had said that there were five. Okay, we all know there are five answer choices and there's one right one. But the way that she would describe it is that you need to stop thinking about choosing the answer choice that's the most right, because there will only be one remotely right answer choice. She said there is something fundamentally wrong with the other four, and we can find out what it is. Like, and so as long as you're committed to finding out what's wrong with the other four answer choices, that helped me kind of take a more active approach and help me be more on the attack, I guess, when I was looking at when I was going through the answer choices. And that helped me avoid some traps as well. Or if I was,
exactly. I mean, I always get trapped in the trap answer. I mean, like
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, you always come down to, not always, but it's really common to come down to two answer choices. And just if I would remind myself, like, okay, one of these is completely wrong. It's just like, there's something wrong with it. That definitely helped me, not give up and know that I could find what was wrong with it. And B, like I said, just be on the offensive a lot more and just really trying to pick things apart. So that was a good thing. Um, I also remember there was one office hour with Ravi, and he quoted, I don't remember who he quoted. I think it had something to do with sports. That's why I don't remember what the guy's name was who he quoted. But the quote was, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. That was what he said. And that resonated with me a lot too, and helped me kind of prioritize what I was studying, and also changing my approach to studying, because as soon as I started myself, or as soon as I started feeling fatigued, or like I knew my focus started to wander a little bit, instead of trying to brute force through what I had planned to study that day or something, I would just walk away, because like I had mentioned earlier, the diminishing returns thing, but that quote really helped me remember that. So yeah, I would say overall it was obviously the content of, like helping go through different concepts and aspects of each section was super helpful as well. But I thought that one really big thing that I took away that I applied in my own study process was definitely the kind of just approach and test mentality. It's arguably just as important as a conceptual foundation with this exam. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
he
have
said
a
quoted Vince Lombardi. Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I was gonna
But
say
sorry,
that's a
hot
Vince
take. Don't
Lombardi
know. But
quote. My
Very
yeah.
famous quote. Just want to say
football guy.
congratulations here to Patience McHenry. She is our first winner of the 1 hour raffle. Patience, I will be sending you an email with all the details on how to redeem your 1 hour with Ross. I do just have one other thing. Note while we're interrupting here for a second, please don't unmute your microphone unless you are called upon. If you do that a couple of times, I will kick you out of the room. I don't want to kick you out of the room. This is important stuff. So please don't do that. Congratulations, Patience, and keep going.
All right, so we got our first winner. Congratulations, Patience. I look forward to working with you when you decide you want to take advantage of that. So Abby, you mentioned a lot of stuff with those office hours, and we do have a lot of questions in the chat right now. There's a couple of things I kind of want to follow up on. And you mentioned you've read a lot of books about the LSAT, but you also mentioned that sometimes just hearing something phrased a certain way, like Kaylin mentioning, looking for problems with answer choices, which is just great advice, or Robbie kind of talking about the best kind of practice was helpful to you. Was there any kind of other elements of getting live instruction from the office hours that you felt wasn't available in like some of the more static objects like books that you were using to study for the LSAT?
Yeah, definitely. Just in being able to, I mean, just in being able to pop a question in the chat, I think is super valuable, because you have, this is live learning that's happening. So if something's not clear when you're reading it in a book, you normally have to spend a lot of time maybe rereading what they've just said in the book, and trying to understand. Whereas with live instruction with the office hours, it's really great that you can just type a question in the chat, and the instructor can clarify or maybe phrase something a different way that would help you understand. So I think that's super indispensable. That's really good. So yeah, I would say just like being able to interact with the person that you're interfaced with there is a really good thing.
Another thing you mentioned was that kind of sharing some stuff about this more general testing strategy or more general kind of approaches to studying, or the study process itself was helpful for you to hear in office hours. Do you have any specific examples of like things that helped you kind of crystallize your own study process that you heard from any of the office hours?
Yeah, honestly, just returning back to the basics. I know that sounds silly, but I remember in one office hour, Chris mentioned that all logical reasoning is about is good arguments and bad arguments. Good premises that support a conclusion and premises that don't necessarily support a conclusion. And I think once I also started thinking of it that simply, even at the higher levels of difficulty, it made questions become a lot clearer to me. It was much easier for me to understand exactly what was going on. And so that was, yeah, that was super valuable. And that's kind of what I did to make the most gains, was just return back to a basic understanding of exactly what was happening in the argument or the set of statements, and also exactly what the answer choices were saying, whether this was a good argument or a bad argument. Because that, I mean, it really was all that came down to.
Yeah, and kind of hearing that can sometimes help you kind of see the connections between questions, right? Like we have all these different question types. Like you can classify logical reasoning down to like maybe like 30 different question types if you really want to. But at the end of the day, kind of hearing the basic idea behind good arguments, bad arguments can be really helpful no matter what stage you're at.
Yeah, and it sounds super obvious, and especially, you know, when you do get up to the 160s and you're, I mean, I was in the 160s plateau for months, and I just kept thinking like, oh my gosh, there's some kind of more sophisticated approach or technique that I'm not using, that I'm not understanding. But it really was when you think of it in the simplest way, it I don't know, it clicked for me when I started just going back to a basic understanding.
Do you have like any timing strategies, Abby?
Yeah, I mean, I would say first to focus on mastery, like 100%. My timing improved immensely when I just focused first on being completely solid on things, because there's no point in refining timing if you're not solid already. And I do find that the more comfortable you are with the concept or the particular question type, it becomes muscle memory, right? Like you don't have to think about what you're doing eventually. You just do it really quickly without thinking. So timing will come, I would say, but also, you know, obviously sometimes I did work on skipping strategies. Like I was making sure that if I imposed a particular like amount of time on myself that I would spend on each question. And if I read the stimulus a few times and wasn't getting it, I forced myself to move on. And that was really helpful too. Skipping can be really, really good when you come back to the question with fresh eyes. And even if you don't get back to it, it's one question out of 25, you know, so like kind of thinking of it in the big picture as well was really helpful with timing. So I would say skipping was a big thing I did, but
in like the actual LSAT, like I can flag a question and then just move on and come back if I have time.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not understanding it after the first few times that you're reading the stimulus, or if something's not clicking, I would definitely just recommend, you know, skipping that question, moving on to the rest, and then coming back to it. Because like I said, with fresh eyes, sometimes it really does help a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. So we got a number of questions in the chat. So let's address a few of those, Abby. Monet would like to know which videos were you watching? Like I think like which kind of dates of those videos you were watching, and also what was your method for watching these videos to get the most out of them?
Yeah, so I started interning with LSATMax in March. So pretty much everything, like date wise, the videos I was watching were from March onwards. And wait, the second question was about how I maximize my time, right?
What was your kind of method for getting the most out of those office hours?
Method, I would say just staying focused, because I know, especially with Zoom and all that, it's very easy to kind of let your attention stray elsewhere, where you're like maybe playing the video in the background, but doing something else at the same time. But I would really say try to stay focused and stay engaged. And also, if you're someone who learns by writing things down, like I personally retain things a lot better when I write and annotate and stuff like that. So, you know, just like jotting down some notes of some important things that the instructor said, I think are some really good strategies to make sure that you're getting a lot out of it and learning something.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, kind of piggyback on that message. It's so important when you do office hours, especially when you attend office hours live, but even if you're watching a recording, work with the instructor. Don't be a passive observant. when you're sorry, a passive observer when you're doing office hours. If you're doing a logic game, do the logic game. Have scratch paper out, try to make the deductions yourself.
Yeah.
Respond to the instructor when they ask questions. You'll get so much more out of the process, so much more out of the experience if you're actually doing the work with the instructor rather than letting the instructor or the rest of the students in it do it for you. So be active, be participatory, have the questions on your own, and then like Abby was saying, be a very active listener. Okay, I think it's about time for us to take the second raffle. So William, when you're ready, who's the next winner of our tutoring hour?
Oh, wait.
Give me just 1 second. I am deduping. You only need to sign up one time, folks.
Oh,
If you sign up for more than one time, you will not be eligible for anything. So this is the last time I'm going to dedupe. But give me 1 second. I'll tell you who the winner is. Boom, boom, boom.
William, while you're working on that, I'll ask Abby another question. This
Right.
question's from Diana, and Diana just asks, kind of more about your study process more generally. How many hours did you study? Like, I guess we can go per day or per week when you answer that. And when did you take breaks in your study process? You mentioned, it being important for you to kind of take some time for yourself. So I think Diana would like to know about that.
yeah, there were a few different benchmarks in my study process where I kind of changed things around. So like I said in the beginning, I mean, I technically started studying in March 2020. And from March through like August or September, like I said, I was still doing school full time, and I was also interning. So I would say I probably did, oh geez, I don't know, maybe like an average of an hour and a half a day. So that was enough for me to just get a basic idea of the concepts of the LSAT. And then after I finally turned in my thesis and all of that, I was still working. So but I only had to divide it with work instead of between school and work. So then I moved up to around probably 2 or 3 hours a day. And then around the autumn time, I started doing, this was when I started pushing myself a little bit more and doing like 5-6 hours a day. For some people that would probably be okay, but for me, I'm kind of one of those people, I can't really stay very focused on something for more than like 3 hours 2 or 3 hours at a time. So yeah, that was about how much I would dedicate to it. And then I forced myself to take Sundays off. So I actually took the exam as well in November of 2020. And that was when I really started to change and impose those limits on myself. So that was when I would cut off at 2 or 3 hours. I would take Sundays, sometimes even Saturdays off. And so, yeah, I would say, what is that? An average of maybe 20 hours a week.
Yeah, I think 20 hours is definitely the sweet spot for studying for most students. So glad you're kind of able to find that time frame for yourself.
Okay, we have our winner. Our winner is David Bucco. Congratulations, David.
All right, awesome.
Good.
Congrats, David. Everyone give David Bucco.
Yeah, everyone just sign up one time. I'm not gonna ping anybody at this point, but just one time, please. And remember, if you do need to ask a question, please raise your hand or type it in the chat. Please don't unmute your microphone. Thank you.
All right. A couple other students have some questions here. Priya would like to know, what did you, and you alluded to this, Abby, I think, what did your milestones look like when you were studying? Like, what were your kind of like accomplishment points that you kind of set for yourself, and how did you realize those, or when did you realize those?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say when I started, like I said, I think one milestone that contributed a lot to my progress was, like I said, imposing limits on how long I was spending and how long I was obsessing over the exam. I was so much more refreshed when I did study, to where I think that contributed a lot to my progress, because I just wasn't so tired and burnt out all the time. Another big thing I think that really turned things around for me was when I started doing, someone had told me about keeping wrong answer journals. And I was familiar with just kind of like reviewing on a video on the internet, how the answer that I had chosen was wrong and all that. But then I finally started keeping wrong answer journals where I was engaging more actively with my own reasoning and then finding the issues with it and reversing it. So I think that played a really big part as well in helping me to stop making the same mistakes that I had been making. So that was another milestone for sure. So I think those were the biggest things that, yeah, contributed and kind of propelled me forward.
All right. So you had a lot of elements that we were working with you in your study
I
plan, a
was.
lot of things that you did
Yeah.
and were able to employ successfully.
And then-
One of those, of course, we're kind of talking about today is office hours,
Yeah.
and you watched a ton of office hours. And let's say some students here would also like to earn a great score, but maybe don't have the time to watch as many office hours as you did. What
Mhm.
tips would you give to these students to make the most efficient use of their office hours time in terms of selecting which office hours to attend or to review? And I know we talked about a little bit about how to kind of participate in those office hours. So let's kind of focus on like which kinds of office hours they should be
Yeah.
doing.
I just want to emphasize that I didn't make all of these changes to my study strategy at one time. It was really just about adjusting one by one. It doesn't need to be like a complete overhaul right away. So with that being said, with office hours, I would recommend really paying attention to practice sections and practice exams that you're taking to identify problem areas and maybe focus on watching office hours there. And also really making good use by asking questions if something is unclear, or if you if you just want something clarified. I think it's really important to ask questions and to make the most of your time. I'd also recommend, like I said, I mean, I already mentioned this, but really kind of keeping notes, making sure you're completely dialed in, because if you already don't have a lot of time to be dedicating to it, you don't want to have to be spending even more time, maybe rewinding a part that you weren't paying attention to, or, like just manipulating the video. Instead, you just want to be, just really paying attention to what they're saying and asking for clarification when you need it, instead of just needing to rewind and stuff. So yeah, I would say just to make sure you're really focused when you are watching them, and to prioritize probably based on your past work and past your past practice exams and practice sections about like what you're doing. That way you can decide accordingly what you're going to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I would second that recommendation. A couple of ways you can keep track of kind of areas that you need to review in office hours. One is just your analytics page of your LSATMax account.
Yeah.
So I hope y'all are definitely making good use of that analytics page, which gives you a kind of question type breakdown of your accuracy of that over your time using the LSATMax. Abby also mentioned another resource that I think is absolutely essential to LSAT success, which is a question journal, a place, essential document where you keep track of the questions you get wrong. And one of the great things of working as a tutor, working with the tutor at LSATMax, is we'll give you a question journal. All the students we're working with, our tutors one-on-one, are provided a very in-depth question journal so that they can really keep track with their tutor of the question types and concepts that they're not doing as well as they would like on for all three sections of the LSAT. So wanted to give a shout out to that for any of you thinking about doing some tutoring sessions with Abby or any one of our other amazing tutors, or anyone who just won a free tutoring hour. A couple other questions in the chat, Abby, if you don't mind addressing some of those. Ronald asked if you had any recommendations for what happens if you find yourself getting distracted. How can you kind of refocus your attention in those moments?
Yeah, I would say don't punish yourself for getting distracted. And don't I used to do that where I would just say, suck it up, keep working. But if it's really just not happening that day, then don't force it. It's okay. Just have some grace with yourself. I'd also say put your phone away because we've all done that where we have our phone right next to our computer and then we get a notification and then we just spiral down the Instagram rabbit hole or Twitter, whatever. So I would say put your phone where you can't see it, where you won't be distracted. Um, and yeah, I mean, just kind of eliminating as many factors as you can control for as possible, and just really just dedicating your attention to that for as long as you can, and don't force it if you're starting to get distracted. It'll still be there tomorrow, or it'll still be there after a quick break. It's not going anywhere. So yeah, don't force yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're getting distracted after, 3 hours of the LSAT, 4 hours of the LSAT, that might just be because that's enough LSAT for that day. And you might be hitting the point of more studying being diminishing returns.
Yeah.
Some other kind of specific things about phones that I would recommend that I've had some success with, because I am, hopelessly addicted to my own phone. So when I never have to do anything, I have to implement some of these things. If like just putting your phone away in a different room isn't an option for you, a couple of things that I found help. The minutes limits you can put on different apps, like if Instagram is your app of choice or TikTok or whatever it might be, you can put minutes restrictions on your phone. So your phone will actually shut you out of that app if you reach that minute restriction for a day. Another thing that I've actually found really helpful for things I like to do on my phone, you can actually put your phone in black and white. At least iPhones, I know you can put in black and white. It's in the accessibility section of it's in your settings app on iPhone. So in accessibility, you can put on a grayscale, turns everything to black and white. And I don't know how that works. Like it must be responding to like the lizardy part of your brain that like is attracted to shiny things, but it makes your phone like 100% less appealing. So a couple of other recommendations I would add to Abby's excellent advice so far.
Yeah, there's some.
So I think we're about at the time for the third.
Yep. Yes, indeed. Our third winner of the free 1 hour tutoring session with Ross Reinhardt is Angie Ortiz Romero.
All right. Awesome. Congratulations,
All right.
Angie.
Congratulations, Angie.
All right. Well,
hey, Ross, I saw a question I wanted to point out to you about. Somebody asked about their tutoring session. They have their free 1 hour tutoring coming up. They wanted to know what they should expect for that 1 hour. Can you go over that for me?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, if you have the free 1 hour tutoring session, my biggest piece of recommendation would be to use it as early in your study process as you can. Now, you want to be realistic about what can be accomplished in 1 hour of tutoring. Are you going to learn all the secrets and strategies of the LSAT in 1 hour? No, it's just not feasible to go over all of those strategies, all of those tips in 1 hour's time and have that be effective to you. So you want to think about, how can I use this hour to set me on a path of success for the rest of my study journey? And so that's why I'd recommend using it early, so that you can work with a tutor to develop in that hour a study plan that'll address your weaknesses that you want to turn into strengths, where you can talk about, okay, given my target score, what are some of the benchmarks I should aim to complete before my test? When should I start taking practice exams? How should I review those practice exams? You can also, during that hour, get access to things like the question journal I mentioned earlier. We also have a document where you can keep track of your review of practice exams, especially if you like doing blind review of your practice exams. You can get access to all of that, develop an effective study plan with your tutor so you can project out to the rest of your study journey a successful plan. So that's what I would recommend. Abby, do you have anything you'd also like to add about what could be what to do in that free hour of tutoring?
Yeah, I would definitely say I would just piggyback off of what you said, to go into it with some things that you already know you want to work on, just so that you're making sure that you're getting the most out of it for you. because yeah, as Ross mentioned, you're not going to become a master of the LSAT on every single section in 1 hour. So just coming in with a few specific things that you know you'd like to improve on and want to maybe refine your strategy for, I think is important.
All right, couple more questions. Monet would like to know what your plan was for logic games.
Oh, my plan?
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect, to be honest. Well, perfect practice makes
Yeah,
perfect,
there
to
we
be
go.
honest.
That's a
Like,
callback.
yeah, there wasn't really much else that I could do. I would just kind of like review what was wrong, and I would make notes for myself in my wrong answer journals about how I maybe could have been more efficient on a specific question or game. But really, it was just about doing a bunch of times to get the timing and the method down. Sorry, that's not a very specific answer, but I really just found that, yeah, doing a bunch of them.
Did you
Is-
do games more than once?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I would do it because even if you already kind of subconsciously or inherently know the answer, it's still important to work through the method to get faster at it, because then you can replicate that on another question and you'll recognize what needs to be done. So yeah, I mean, I would do like, oh God, I don't even want to know. I don't even want to go back in my analytics and think about how many times I would do, especially the more recent games, how many times I did those. I mean, I would say sometimes like 12 times. It was a lot. But just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, logic games are a skill, and like any other skill, you got to do it a lot to get good at it.
Yep.
You know, you don't become a master chef in a couple of times attempting a recipe. You don't become a great basketball player just shooting the ball a couple of times. You don't learn how to surf just going out into the water once or twice. You have to get out there day in, day out, try the same thing over and over again, refine your process. So yeah, your plan for logic games should be do a lot of logic games, do them
Yeah.
a lot, do them over and over. And like Abby was saying, I think one thing that probably led to her success was she was very reflective upon her process. What worked, what didn't work, how can I refine and change my process? Another thing, just to shout out for office hours, with a variety of instructors doing office hours for logic games, you can see a variety of approaches. Now, there is not just one approach to do well in logic games. There are many, many different ways to do basically every game that's ever been published on an LSAT. So my way might not be the same way as Abby's way, which might not be the same way as some of the other instructors for hosting office hours. So being able to sample a bunch of different ways to do a game can help you find the way that's going to work the most for you. And so again, encourage you to check out as many office hours as you can if games is a struggle for you, so that you can kind of see different approaches and find the one that's going to be most effective for you.
For sure.
Monet also wanted to know, did you use a tutor at all?
I did like in the very beginning, but I didn't use one through LSATMax, but it was just in the very, very kind of beginning, just in learning how to do, and I mostly worked on logic games with that person. It was just like an acquaintance, someone I already knew. Yeah.
Adina wants to know what your biggest struggle. I think Adina means on the LSAT, not like in life more generally, but what was the hardest part?
Well, but to be honest, my biggest struggle, I think, was just mental. I already kind of tend to struggle with anxiety. So, and there were just a lot of extra other factors going on in my life at the time that made the LSAT just, it was really hard for me to cope with the test anxiety. And I think that ultimately, yeah, really, it was a lot, it played a lot bigger part in my plateau, just in looking back on it than I would have acknowledged at the time. So I would definitely say my biggest struggle was just my own mind, and kind of really trying to turn my mindset around. I also, the struggle was timing for me as well, because I had fixed this particular deadline that I was going to take the November 2020 LSAT. I was not going to retake. I was going to apply to law school last cycle, and that was it. And I think that just contributed even more to the problems and the stress. So I would definitely recommend, like, you can obviously impose a date for yourself when you want to take the exam, but just prepare, have a plan B in case it doesn't go the way you want, and that way you can be a little bit more flexible. So yeah, I would say my biggest obstacle was myself. Simply put.
Mine too. It's sometimes can be ourselves can be our own greatest enemy on the LSAT. Definitely got in my way a lot. I got in my own way a lot when I was doing the LSAT.
Yeah.
I think this is a great break to give away another tutoring hour if you're ready, William.
I am ready. We have another winner. Our winner is, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I'm probably not. I apologize. Cheng-King Lee. Cheng-King Lee.
How do you spell that, William?
Chenqing. Last name is Li. Congratulations. You have just won another hour of tutoring with Ross Reinhardt.
I think you've muted out when you're spelling that. I'm sorry.
I'll slack it to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, congratulations. Look forward to working with you, Cheng-King Lee. And Abby, we've got a few more questions. I also have some questions too. Before we go into that, I want to shout out Priya, who in the chat section also recommended as a way to deal with distraction, the Pomodoro method. I think that's a fantastic method. I use that a ton for kind of my own personal work. Essentially, it's a period of work followed by a short break. So traditional Pomodoro method, I think, is 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes of break. You can kind of change that as you see fit. Sounds like Priya likes to take 30 minutes on, 5 minutes off. For the LSAT, maybe it makes sense to do 35 minutes on, 5 minutes off, given that most of us have 35 minutes to do the section, but wanted to shout out you, Priya, for that great recommendation.
That's a good one, especially if you're juggling multiple tasks and multiple things.
Mm-hmm. All right. Another question is, did you use blind review for your practice exams, Abby?
I did. Yeah, I did. And that was super helpful just in identifying problem areas along with the LSATMax analytics. That's super helpful as well. But yeah, blind review just to see if there was a discrepancy, and there usually is, between your timed performance and your untimed performance. So yeah, definitely did. I think it's essential.
Yeah, and for those of us in the audience who don't know that jargon, I know it's very common now, but some might know what blind review. Could you describe what your process of blind review was?
Yeah, my process was, so I would take a timed either practice section or practice exam, and then afterwards, either a few hours later the next day, or it could be right after, but I just liked to look at it with fresh eyes, like the next day. And before you check the answers from your timed section, you mark when you're taking the time section, questions that you're unsure about, so that you're not 100% sure on. And then before you check those answers, you'll just kind of work through it. You'll try to dissect your own reasoning until you're 100% sure about those questions that you marked. And then you'll check the answer, and you'll see, usually, like I said, a discrepancy between your timed results and your untimed results. And so, like, if you get something right in both timed practice and blind review, you know that that's probably a conceptual problem that you need to work on a little bit more. If you get something right in both blind review and the timed practice, you know that it's probably maybe like a confidence thing, or something else, but generally you're in good shape. And then if you get something wrong in timed practice and correct in blind review, then it could be a number of things, either timing or just refining your application of the concept to actual timed practice. So yeah, it's a really good metric for figuring out where you need work and how you can go about it. So I don't know, Ross, if you have you're the more experienced instructor, like if you have a better way to describe it, but that was basically just the way I would go about it.
No, that's it. It's a proven and effective way of seeing why you got things right on the test, and being able to develop, or helping you kind of develop your own approach to it, or your own method of review. So yeah, essentially you take the test, you might score it, but before you actually look too in depth at the score, or before you look at any of the explanations, you just take the test again, untimed, and then you kind of see, okay, what happened on the first and second attempt. And like Abby was saying, if you got it right on both attempts, that's great. Don't need to prioritize that. If you got it wrong on your initial timed attempt, but right on your second attempt, that might be a timing issue. And there's a few things you can do to address that. If you got it right on the first attempt and wrong on the second attempt, that could be a confidence issue. If you got it wrong on both attempts, then that might be an actual like ability issue that might necessitate a more in-depth review. And like I said at the top, or like I said a few minutes ago, if you work with a tutor, we have documents that help kind of make this blind review process a little bit more organized, and also gives you the opportunity to see what to do based on your performance. So if any of you are interested in working with a tutor, we'll definitely provide you with that blind doc review when it comes to take practice exams.
Sure.
All right, so got a few kind of dorky LSAT questions, Abby, that I love to ask instructors, because I'm just a nerd who loves talking about the exam. So is that okay if I ask you some, if we nerd out on some LSAT questions? Okay. So you spent a lot of time around the test. Even after you got that amazing score, you continue to watch office hours for us, doing things like, pursuing being an instructor for the LSAT. So I'm curious, do you have any hot takes about the LSAT? Any controversial or contrarian opinions about the test?
Yeah, I mean, so, and maybe this is also just like for people who aren't as familiar with the LSAT and what's tested on it, but if there's someone who gets a really good score or something, they'll say, oh, that person is so smart. And that drives me crazy, because succeeding on the LSAT is not about natural intelligence or intuition. Intuition only takes you so far on this exam. The success on the LSAT is about it's like formulas, it's applying a basic method. And I really think anyone can do that. So that it drives me crazy when people say, like, oh, that person's so smart, they got a blah, blah, blah. Because it's not about, I don't think it's about intelligence. It's just about just making sure you're doing the right things to understand what's being asked of you on the exam. So I would say, I don't know if that's a hot take, because maybe everyone knows that, but I just have found that a lot of people tend to say that, and that drives me crazy.
No, I think that's a great thing to point out. A lot of students really take it personally when the test is difficult, but you're right. It's not a sign of intelligence. It's just a skill you have to learn. It's like, you wouldn't look at like someone who's, sorry?
Oh no, I was just gonna say, it's like riding a bike. You wouldn't be like, oh, that person is so, naturally athletic. No, it's just a simple kind of succession of movements that you need to practice. And that's kind of what the LSAT is in its most basic.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't see someone like hula hooping really well and be like, oh, that person must be a genius.
Okay. Yeah, no.
That person just did a lot of hula hooping. Yeah, that person rode a bike a lot. That person did a lot of logic games.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now you said, and I'm actually really interested to get your take on this, because sounds like you read a lot of books, talked to a lot of people about the LSAT, kind of got a wide range of perspectives about the test. What's the worst piece of advice you ever encountered about the LSAT?
So much. There's so much misinformation out there, which I think that's why it's important to kind of like work with professionals like the tutors or the people who do office hours, because it's just, like I said, there's so much wrong information out there. I think one thing I read / was told was that, you have to see as many practice exams and take as many practice sections as possible in a week. And it's not, I learned after my 160s plateau, when I was trying to do that, I was trying to take 3 or 4 practice exams a week to familiarize myself with every single manifestation of a question type and all this stuff. And it didn't work for me, because the most important thing is depth, not breadth, I would say, with the LSAT, because what's the point in seeing all these different versions of the same skill if you haven't even mastered the skill? It's just like doing the same thing over and over again, but you're not understanding what you're supposed to be doing. So I would definitely say that was a bad piece of advice, like just to go through and plow through as much material and as many practice exams as possible before the exam.
Yeah, I agree. My hot take about the LSAT is most people take way too many practice exams.
Yeah,
right? way, way too many practice exams.
Yeah, like I improved the most when I went down to one practice exam a week and spent 2 or 3 days just dissecting that practice exam. So yeah, definitely. Just dial it down, people. Yeah.
Especially when you have other things like office hours or,
Yeah.
the analytics page, which has that adaptive learning and LSATMax, like there's better ways to target what you need to do.
There's so many opportunities for targeted training, and that's super important to identify those problem areas and really work on those first before you try to put it in the context of the whole exam.
So another question I have, do you have a favorite or least favorite LSAT question, passage, or game?
One passage I found really interesting was this reading comp, and I had to go back and find it, but it was from June 2014. And it was about cultural property law and UNESCO and these like clay figures in Mali.
Mhm.
I thought that was super interesting. I mean, I studied international studies in school, so I learned a lot about these like multilateral organizations and stuff. So I thought that was super interesting because I wasn't familiar at all really with cultural property or that idea. So it actually made me want to read more about it. Post LSAT, of course. I didn't have time for it while I was studying. So yeah, I think that was my favorite, or at least that's a passage
Yeah.
that really stuck with me. I really liked it.
Yeah. What are those called? Like the Jerry or something like that.
Yeah.
Stones. That's for any of you who are interested in looking at that passage. That is a great passage to practice identifying the author's tone. That's one of the most interesting passages about authors' tone or attitude. So if that's a part of reading comprehension that you find difficult, that would be an excellent passage to review. I think it's June 2014, like passage 2, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact passage number, but I know it's June 2014 because I did find it there. But yeah, super interesting.
All right. Well, we got one more tutoring hour to give away. William, are you ready?
I am ready. And also, did you see that other thing I just shot you over? I want to do that too. What do you think?
All right.
I want to do that. Okay, but first I'm going to announce our final winner of the hour. And our final winner of the hour is, I had it here just a second ago, Masha Papyrian. I'm sure I pronounced your name wrong. I am so sorry. But Masha, you are the winner of the final tutoring hour. Oh, but wait. For those of you who didn't win a tutoring hour here, I want to give away one more tutoring hour right now. Just came up with the idea. It's going to be a trivia question. So no Googling. Okay. First person who answers the right answer in the chat will win another free hour of tutoring. And you can't have won the first 5 hours. So Patience, David, Angie, Ching King, and Masha, you're not eligible. Everybody else is. Here we go. Here is your trivia question. What year was the first LSAT proctored?
You have 10 seconds to put your guess down.
You put it in the everyone chat. Monet, you're wrong. Mitchell, you're wrong.
No, we're not talking about the current LSAT. We're talking about the test called the LSAT.
Yes. Carrion, you have the right answer.
All right, we'll be on the honor system. Carrion
is the winner. It is 1948.
Wow.
Yes, the
Year
LSAT was
wrong.
created in 1948. According to the official LSAT history page, the first LSAT was done on February 28th, 1948.
Nice.
Yeah, the same year the Ed Sullivan show debuted. I don't know why I know that, but I do.
That would have been on radio too.
So
You end up
congratulations to Patience, David, Angie, Cece, Masha, and Carrie Ann. Look forward to working with all of you. And we're almost out of time, but Abby, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insight, wisdom, story to everyone. One last question. Now that you have this shiny new LSAT score, what are your plans?
Yeah, I mean, I am excited to start tutoring with LSATMax, and I'm just working on applying to law school right now. I'm doing my application materials, hope to submit in October, and going from there. We'll see how the cycle turns out.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to working with you a bit more closely as you tutor, and
Nice.
want to wish you the best of luck once you start applying to law schools during the cycle. Do you have any schools you're targeting?
I'd really like to do a dual, like a school with a dual degree program, like where with a French law school. That would be really, that's like my goal. But really, I'm trying not to get too wrapped up in in like a particular school right now, just because I know it's super competitive this year. But yeah, so I'll kind of see what the what the possibilities are on the table, I guess, when the time comes. But yeah,
Cool. Well,
yeah.
yeah, hopefully you will be studying law at like the Sorbonne. That's a French school, right?
Yeah, the Sorbonne. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's
No, no,
can't
that's
pronounce French at all.
okay. Yeah,
Well, thank you. And yeah, yeah, there was some confusion in the chat about when the August scores will be released.
yeah.
Patience, that's absolutely right. September 10th, that's when they'll be coming out. Well, a few last things I want to share with y'all before we go. We got some changes on the horizon. Now that we've done 500 of these office hours, we're of course going to continue to do all of the things we love to do at LSATMax, like these office hours. We've got some changes on the horizon. First change is that we have a lot of new instructors coming in. So many of the other instructors that you've seen in these office hours in the past, in the first 500, are now taking their scores and going off to law school. So we got a new team. I'm incredibly excited for them to start working with y'all, both in office hours and in one-on-one tutoring, and perhaps in some new types of tutoring we may be offering in the future. But one of the first projects that William and I worked on was hiring this new team of tutors. And I know a little bit about kind of what other test prep companies do to kind of hire their tutors. And I can promise you that these tutors have been put through the most rigorous hiring process in the LSAT prep space. I promise you, these are all amazing teachers with great stories and absolutely keen teaching skills that can respond and help any student. So I'm really, really excited for this new team to start working with y'all. I've worked with a lot of instructors in my career. I think this is one of, if not the most kind of qualified team to help y'all out. So you'll see some new faces in these office hours, including, of course, the face you got to know and the person you got to know a little bit better today, Abby. So she'll be a part of this team. So 13 new tutors to work with y'all. A couple of other things we will be working on coming soon. Discord message board, where you can connect with your fellow LSATMax students and instructors. This will kind of be focused. This will be kind of a replacement to the message board. We think it'll be not only a better and more responsive service for y'all, but it'll give you opportunities to connect with other LSATMax students, learn from each other, empathize with each other, perhaps even work on elements of the test together. So we're really excited to debut this shortly. One of the things I'm working on a lot behind the scenes is new and improved explanations on LSATMax. So those will be going up shortly. Something I've talked about today a bit is powerful and proven resources for tutoring students. So if you do want to work with tutors like Abby, they're all going to be equipped with a number of documents to help you keep track of the questions you're missing with the question journal, implement an organized blind review process with a blind review journal. We also have documents to help you deal with certain important concepts like flaws on logical reasoning, or the main point in reading comprehension, or scenarios in logic games. So all of this will be very exciting for those of you who work with a tutor one-on-one. And of course, we'll be holding more of these office hours. We've just done 500. We're going to keep doing them every single day. So by my calculations, we should be at 1,000 sometime in late 2022. So that'll be really exciting when we get there. Abby, if you're still around, I hope you'll join us for that as well. We'll definitely do something special for our 1,000th. But in the meantime, if you want to request an office hours topic, email me, ross@testmaxprep.com. Definitely want to be responsive to your needs, your requests. So shoot me an email if you have any requests for office hours topics we don't get to, and we will try to build that into our schedule. So thank you all so much for attending. Excited to work for all of you who won office or who all won tutoring sessions. Thank you, Abby, so much for sharing
Thank you so
everything
much.
today.
Yeah, this was so fun. And good luck, everybody. You got
Mhm.
this.
And thanks to William for managing that raffle. So really excited to have 500 more office hours with y'all. Hope y'all have a great rest of your Friday. Happy studying. Take care.